Hey, Guoba here with a guide on Serval, the final free unit to discuss until at least Yukong appears. She is so underrated and can actually do some really nice damage. Her true power hasn't even been fully discovered yet, but after some enlightenment, help and testing, I've done some maths on a new Serval build that no one is really talking about. She has a unique Break Playstyle that will let her extend shock debuffs, including her own weakness break shocks, infinitely. On top of that, she has some of the strongest Eidolons for a 4-star unit. Finally, if you're pulling for Kafka, she's a must build, and I'll explain why. We're talking about her stats, abilities, and Eidolons, then her build, rotation playstyles, and team compositions. Where I start, credit to Edison's Maths Club, Kawaii, and Nexus for help and testing, as well as the Kaching main theory crafters, like Mono, for discovering its potential. I won't be stating their hard work, just building upon their ideas with my own thoughts and calculations. Now, when I wrote this, it wasn't that public, but now Kaching Main's actually released a little group chat on this Break Effect build, so if you want to check that out, please go and check the Kaching Main's Star Rail Discord. It's a great Discord. So Serval is a 4-star lightning character that follows the Erudition path, who are AoE damage specialists. What's cool about Serval is she's kind of a hybrid Erudition Nihility unit, as she has a lot of debuff and dot potential. I think they made her Erudition to avoid her abusing Nihility light cones. Anyway, at level 80, her base HP is 917, her base attack is 652, and her base defense is 374. She has a nice base speed of 104, and as an Erudition unit, the lowest base taunt you can get of 75, equaling a 17% chance of getting hit in a standard team. This puts her at some of the lowest HP and defense in the game, which is normal for most damage units. Her attack, however, is one of the highest in the game, on par with Xing Shui and the highest among 4-stars, even being above Ziela. Her speed also puts her in the top 10 fastest units in the game, and she has the second lowest energy cost in the game. So despite her squishy stats, she has some amazing offensive stats. Now onto her abilities. Her base attack is Roaring Thunderclap, and it will do a standard amount of lightning damage to a single enemy. This will do 30 toughness damage and regenerate a skill point, as well as 20 energy for Serval. Her skill is Lightning Flash, and this is a blast type skill, meaning it will do a large amount of lightning damage to a selected target and a lesser amount to the adjacent targets. On top of that, she has an 80% base chance to inflict a shock debuff to all enemies hit. When enemies are shocked, they'll take a sizable amount of lightning damage at the beginning of their turns. Remember, Break Effect won't boost this dot's damage. This skill will do 60 toughness damage to the main target, 30 to the adjacent targets, and use 1 skill point, as well as regenerate 30 energy. The ultimate is Here Comes the Mechanical Fever. She will do a large amount of lightning damage to all enemies this time. On top of that, enemies that are shocked will have their shock debuffs extended by 2 turns. Now, at the start of the game, people just kind of ignore this part and spam Serval. But this extension is ridiculously strong, and it's the only extension in the game. Future dot extensions will be very meta. This will make her skill dot go to 4 turns of duration, equaling to 416% multiply value of damage, which is basically a Ziela ultimate. That's not all. Lightning characters' weakness breaks will inflict a separately stacking shock debuff. These weakness break shocks can also be extended by Serval's ultimate, allowing some absolutely insane damage potential. And even Serval herself can do this, meaning if she weakness breaks with her ultimate, she will apply a 4-turn long weakness break shock damage over time. So when Kafka comes out and applies her own shocks too, Serval can extend them. If any lightning teammate weakness breaks an enemy, Serval can extend that shock. Potential is limitless. So this ultimate costs 100 energy and will do 60 toughness damage to all enemies and will refund 5 energy on use. Serval's talent is Galvanic Chords and actually has some pretty crazy damage output. It does no toughness damage and it doesn't gain her energy, but whenever she attacks, so her basic attack, skill, or ultimate, she will do additional lightning damage to all shocked enemies. So if you're fighting 3 shocked enemies, a basic attack will now do additional damage to everyone. Finally, we have her technique, Good Night Bellabog. This is an attacking technique, so use buffs before it. We'll do a base 60 toughness damage to all enemies weak to lightning, and then she'll do some lightning damage to one random enemy. She also has a 100% base chance for all enemies to become shocked for 3 turns, with a lower multiplier than her skill. Now after testing, this shock can't stack with her skill shock, so you can't stack the 2 and extend them with her ultimate. And I believe her skill shock will actually replace this technique shock, so it's not as awesome as you think. Onto her traces. Rock and Roll is her first trace passive, increasing her base chance to shock on her skill by 20%, which is a pretty massive buff and will let her avoid a lot of effect hit rate problems when combined with her trace bonuses. The next one is String Vibration. At the start of battle, she will regenerate 15 energy immediately. There's a nice little buff, and this brings her to 65 energy at the start of Memory of Chaos, allowing for a potential instant ultimate. Finally, her third trace passive is Mania. When she defeats an enemy, she will gain a 20% attack buff for 2 turns. Neat buff, it's good for weak enemies, but it won't be used much versus bosses. Her trace bonuses are in crit rate, which is massive, effect hit rate, which is actually really lovely, and effect resistance, which is whatever it can help her optimal playstyle. Now onto her Eidolons, which at first I knew E4 and E6 were great, but upon testing with a friend and just by looking at it properly, we found how crazy her E2 is, as well as the information that with her E2, her E1 isn't that bad. Now her first Eidolon is Echo Chamber. Her basic attack will do 60% of her basic attack's damage to a random enemy adjacent to the target of her basic attack. Now on paper this is little damage, but this can proc her talent's additional damage for a small DPS increase. That's not the good part though, so let's move on to her E2. Her E2 is Encore, maybe one of the strongest 4-star Eidolons in the game. Whenever her talent is triggered to deal additional damage, she regenerates 4 energy. Now after testing we found that it's per target, so every shocked enemy on the field, per attack of any kind from Serval, would regenerate 4 energy for her. The potential is insane. Against 3 enemies, you can ultimate and start at 17 energy. You can ultimate into skill on the same turn and have 59 energy, already over halfway back to her ultimate. This will also regenerate energy every time the enemy takes dart damage from Serval's skill shock debuff, but not her weakness break one. So we don't know why that is, because her shock debuff doesn't trigger her talent's additional damage, so it could be a bug. So this will regenerate an extra 4 energy whenever an enemy takes a turn. It seems like a bug, but if it's not, it's very strong. So this will also regenerate an extra 4 energy from the additional hit from her E1, making it not that bad. Her E4 is a great quality of life that can amass even more shocks versus large waves of enemies. It will now let her ultimate apply shocks to any enemies not shocked with the same damage as her skill. This theoretically means that you don't even need to skill at E4 to apply your skill shock, and then you can instantly extend it by 2 turns. I don't think or know if this can stack with her skill shock, but I assume it won't. Anyway, it's still a great Eidolon, and if used in optimal situations, you could ultimate and weakness break an enemy for 4 turns of your own shock damage over time on top of 4 turns of a weakness break shock damage over time. A final Eidolon gives her 30% more damage to shocked enemies. This means her talent, her skill dart, her ultimate and her basics will do 30% more damage. This assumes you shock, which should always be the case unless you're facing a shock immune enemy or get very unlucky. If you followed along, you can see Serval as a beast, and when used correctly can be so strong. Eidolons scale her amazingly and give her more potential. Her best and absolute need Eidolon for her best playstyle would be her E2, but you can still do the playstyle at E0. Her E6 is the next biggest buff. She has great AoE potential, and with these shock debuffs can have some nice backloaded damage on top of good front-loaded damage. I'd say she's a must build for free-to-play players, and even if you have Genuine, she can be part of dot teams that Genuine cannot, so he doesn't make her irrelevant at all. Now onto her best build. I calculated her damage with several different light cones and with an attack percent rope versus a break effect rope. Yes, the break effect stat everyone memes on. I saw some potential of it as an efficient subset on some sports, as well as potentially used on characters that don't need energy or attack on the rope. So its potential couldn't really be seen without looking towards the high base damage at max character level. Now that people are looking into it more as we get to a high level, we can see how strong it can truly be. Just like EM in Genshin, it scales on the level and the stat itself. So if we look at base break damage, the base damage from level 60 to 70 is a 62% base damage increase. From 70 to 80, we get another 41% base damage increase. So this build that I'm talking about now is an endgame build. Getting characters 80 is a long road. For early game, I would just say to go Breakfast Light Cone with crit, speed, lightning, and attack. For min-maxers and endgame players, Serval's build will shift to a break effect rope. If you play her right, which is what you're supposed to do at endgame, then break effect rope will come out on top of her. This is because in the endgame you should be planning your teams for certain things. Now speed planning can be a big hassle, and break planning is actually probably much easier. You can easily find the enemy's toughness, find out who in your team will break, and adjust accordingly. If you want to see how we play Serval using break rope, then continue watching until her rotation. So this is versus 3 elites at level 90. We still use crit rate, speed, and lightning percent main stats as her core kit does great damage itself. But the potential of the break effect stack comes out ahead of pure attack percent on the rope. As you can see, you'll still need to be fast or smart with energy, but you get a large damage increase. For energy, I use E2 as an example, as a Eidolon will give her a ton of free energy to make this work. More speed will increase this potential, and you can actually run this at E0 by using passkey or by being faster. Another reason why break effect is so good is because how easy it is to build. Break effect rope and break effect subs with the 3-star light cone passkey will do the same damage as an optimal crit setup with attack percent rope on the 4-star breakfast light cone, and way more if you're not planning breaks with the breakfast light cone. So instead of going for that perfect crit ratio, maybe just go for a free 3-star light cone and a full break effect. Now the calculations aren't perfect, and this simulation won't be the same as everyone's. If you're wondering why she's doing as much as Genuine E6 on Pridewen's website, it's because we use different simulations, and Pridewen's a bit sus anyway. Now the theory crafter Mono, who found this playstyle before, found different numbers and tested different things. They saw that even if you fail the ultimate extension, the pure break damage from break rope will still not be bad and have similar or higher damage to attack percent rope. I recommend checking out Kaching Main's theory crafting server on Discord. They're the best theory crafting group in Genshin and now in Serval. They help out on basically every answer in the question section, and I help around there too, or meme on people. They then have a pure theory crafting area where you can gain access to for the nerds, and if you really want to see the details of everything the game has to offer. They go into depth on everything, and this is where the break effect setup originated from. Having more than one opinion on builds is always a must for games, so if you want to see their in-depth research on this build, go and check it out. Never just listen to one content creator, even if it's a cute bear. So if you're doing a very skill-positive playstyle and only using basics with her E2, or just playing optimally at E0, Break Effect and the Thief set will come out ahead. If you fail on break planning, then it will drop in value. So I recommend just going Lightning set, as its domain is very good for tanks and DPS, and it boosts her whole kit for more consistency. So for main stats, you go the usual crit rate or crit damage chest, speed boots, lightning damage orb, but for more damage in optimal Serval setup, you always want Break Effect rope. As for substats, speed and Break Effect are best in this setup. Crit is great too, and extra effect hit rate subs are cool to get because of the endgame enemy effect resistance. All that counts, here are the calculations I've done. Before Dawn is up top because of its pure stats. Battle Pass Light Cone is best on her, but only at S5 and is better on someone else. And the Mooka Way is second, but only due to it being 3 sacks during the simulation. For single enemies, it drops a lot in value, or when you kill enemies. I'd recommend just going Seriousness of Breakfast. It's a great light cone and completely free and not that much low in damage. This is also without it being stacked up. A signature light cone is not great on her. So these are all at E2 with planned breaks, but the ranking is still the same at E0 regardless of breaks. For the easiest light cone to use, you can just go Breakfast, and for the even easier option, go Passkey for a way easier setup for this playstyle. The way this playstyle works is that you need to plan your Serval to break the enemy's weakness. Now that's less annoying than it sounds. You only need to break this weakness once, but more is always nice. And even if you don't, your own skills dots will do great damage, and any lightning ally that weakness breaks can do just as well, with a little less damage because they won't be building break effect. So it doesn't lose that much consistency. You plan your attacks out to let Serval break the enemy's weakness, and the most optimal attack would be with her ultimate. You want to apply your initial skill dot to the enemies, and then if you're at your E2, you can just basically until your ultimate is up. If you're at E0, you need to skill and use Passkey, or you need to be fast and use your skill a lot more. So you will break the weakness with the ultimate optimally, extending your skills dot, and immediately extending your weakness break dot by 2 turns. This will give you a nice long 4-turn shock debuff that will let you cycle back to your ultimate to extend it again. You really can't mess it up if it gets to 4 turns, as your ultimate should always cycle before then. Speed is a must to make it even easier, and speed boots are great on her regardless of playstyle. Speed makes her break effect potential even better too, as she'll have more break opportunities, faster ultimates, and more dot extensions. If she gets CC'd, she can just break the enemy's toughness again and repeat the situation. But to be honest, with speed boots and with some speed subs, she might do fine and not care about being CC'd, as 4 turns of dot is a long time to cycle back. Against even faster enemies, or if you are not fast enough, you can bring Asta for a great attack buff for her whole kit, as well as an amazing speed buff that will let Serval cycle so easily. So for team compositions, you can go for a core of Abundance Preservation besides her, and then a flex slot. If you're playing optimally, maybe you only need 1 of Abundance Preservation, and you can go 2 flex slots. Su Shang is a nice second DPS that can go ham on the broken enemies. Another great option is Sampo for the OP dot vulnerability he brings to the team with his ultimate. Asta is extremely good in endgame when enemies get really fast, and some enemies have a lot of base speed regardless. This will help this playstyle a lot, and Asta brings nice attacks and buffs. For her best teammate, it will be Kafka, and Serval will be Kafka's best teammate. Every shock from Kafka will be her own, so Serval and Kafka can stack their respective shocks, and Serval can extend them infinitely. Kafka will be great at weakness breaking and will be building break effect herself, so her damage can go even higher thanks to Serval. Kafka also has her own dot vulnerability effect and can make dots do front-loaded damage, so Sampo isn't even necessary. The final nail in the coffin is that Kafka's weakness break shock and Serval's weakness break shock can stack. So for her best team, I'd say Serval, Kafka, and then 2 defensive slots. If you want, you can go Bilo and Silverwolf for a mono lightning team with great survivability and more consistency, as the only issue Serval faces is not facing lightning weak enemies. This team should just shred everything and should be great fun. The damage buffs from Silverwolf are also amazing, and she can slow enemies for easier ultimate cycling on Serval. A more free-to-play team would be a defensive support, so Natasha or Fire MC or March, or 2 of them together, then Sampo and Serval. If you want more damage, Tingyun or Pella or Asta can help out. Anyway, that's all on Serval. If you like the guide and learn something, like and maybe consider subscribing. If you find any new cool theory crafting ideas to share for my next video, please message me on Discord or on YouTube. I love reading and talking about them. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.